This is quite literally, without a shadow of a doubt, a military operation within each state. Okay. MIDA is regulatory capture. Each GPU is at minimum like $8, $9, $10,000. Okay. So because of the fact that these GPUs are so expensive, they are able to actually rent the GPU power. So right now, all over the United States, we're seeing these buildings of or this biggest concentration of computing power in human history, not factories, not housing, not hospitals, but building full blown buildings of graphic chips, right? And the same chips that are used, for example, to render your kids or yours or mine Xbox games or computer games or PlayStation games are now stacked by hundreds of thousands of them inside of buildings that are the size of football stadiums, drinking electricity and taking that in by the gigawatt and water by the millions of gallons. Now, these people that are building these are telling you that it's about national security or an AI race against China. They say we need them so that America doesn't lose a race to China, which couldn't be further from the truth. The story is a lie. And the lie matters because of who actually wins when you believe it or when it happens. So what is a GPU really in plain English? A GPU is just a chip, okay? Not a potato chip. You don't want to eat it, okay? But it's a chip that originally was built to run video games and computers and intelligence or data computation. Now, today it runs artificial intelligence, all right? These chips are used to train those of like ChatGPT, Claude, Grok. These are the same kinds of chips that I'm talking about. We're just saying now way, way, way more of them packed together, running 24 hours a day, and they're generating so much heat that they have to be cooled by either entire rivers of water or industrial scale air conditioning systems or cooling towers. Well, when you compute from Amazon or Microsoft or Google, you're renting time on those chips. Okay. When a startup trains an AI model, for example, there's tons of AI startups that are putting out open source large language models, trying to compete with Claude and ChatGPT. So this is a race right now. When a startup trains an AI model, or when a hospital runs medical imaging, like for example, my wife is pregnant, we went to go see the ultrasound. Well, in the ultrasound, they're actually using AI to detect what parts of the body of the baby's body that we're looking at, and they're running AI computations at that very moment. So that's what I mean, medical imaging and others like PET scans or all kinds of different types of imagery. Now, think about also when banks run fraud detection, when a defense contractor processes satellite data, when an oil company simulates a reservoir, when a hedge fund backtests a trading strategy. That is a big one, actually. It's a very popular demand. All of that runs on GPU rented time from somebody's data center. Okay. You don't just run it. You can't run this stuff on your computer. Even I have a pretty decent computer. I have two of them. And my members only live stream, by the way, for 99 cents. You can become a member. Every Saturday, we do members only lives, 10 a.m. Pacific time. We did one last week, and I was like building something and trying to run it. And it takes a long time. In order to operate an AI intelligence system, you need a custom built hardware. You have to literally build it together. There's a GPU called the Nvidia Blackwell, which is a 48 gigabyte GPU. VRAM that runs, GPU that basically is so powerful it can literally run a small office operating AI messaging and listen to the audio and then compute it and turn it into summaries and outputs and stuff like that. So like you have to rent this stuff if you don't want to spend, I don't know, $50,000 minimum to run a facility with AI inside of just your little private company. All right. So GPU time, like a lot of people say, like, are data centers going to be the new oil? Well, if so, how could that be? Right. It's not necessarily GPU. Okay. It's not necessarily data centers that will become the new gold or the new oil. It's actually GPU time. Okay. whoever controls the supply of GPU time rental actually controls the price. And that goes with anything. Whoever controls the supply of gold, they control the price. Supply of diamonds, they control the price. Supply of oil, they control the price. Controls, they also control the access. And who gets to do work? They get to control who operates at a level that they want to operate. So why is the government suddenly obsessed with data centers? I'll tell you. And a lot of things that people don't talk about really is that for the last 50 years, computing was something that you would purchase. Okay. You would buy a computer, for example. You bought a phone and you owned it. Okay. It's affordable enough to be able to buy. That's really what I'm getting at here, is that you can actually purchase this and it's affordable enough to get away with buying it. Okay. Now, this is where, and think about it, that thing is sitting on your desk, right? You own it. Like, you have to understand where I'm going with this and compare it really to things that we currently have. AI completely breaks that model. It breaks it completely. To run real AI, you need hardware in one place that no individual, no small business, and almost no large business really can own themselves. It's also a liability, not to mention it's extremely expensive. And then not also that, the cleaning, the operations, the legalities, like all of the things that should be done to follow EPA regulatory compliance. You also, you have to just rent it, because at this point, it doesn't make sense. Say you're a hospital, okay, and you want to run all this imagery. You want to run all of the, do you use AI for all kinds of things? Whatever. The doctors need to analyze a patient's imaging. They want to analyze a patient's conversation and maybe get some input from an AI that's medically trained, okay? You're going to have to rent this software. And then you're going to, not software, this GPU time to operate your software. And you have to log into someone else's building and rent their machines by the hour. All right. Now, whoever owns these buildings, that's the choke point. Okay. That's the choke point on every economically productive activity in general when somebody owns something. But specifically, we're talking about AI. So whoever owns those buildings owns the choke point on the economic productivity and the activity thereof that uses AI. Okay. Which in 5 years will be pretty much every economically productive activity in general. The federal government, the Department of Defense, and the intelligence community really figured out all of this in 2022. If you've heard about AI 2027, what is it going to look like? This comes from learning this back in 2022, 2023. They watched ChatGPT. They watched what happened when one company suddenly had a thing that every other company desperately needed, and they couldn't build it themselves. And the people in Washington really thought, we should make sure that the thing happens here. Like, we should make sure we have access to it and that we run it, and that we should make sure that adversaries don't. That is a legitimate concern for them. The part I could grant them, possibly, but that's not the only thing that's happening. The other thing that's happening is when you build the world's GPU supply on American soil, under American military base operations that we just explained, like MIDA, with American utility ratepayers footing the electricity bill, footing their city and local tax bills, footing their everything, their water bill, you create something that's never existed before. Okay, a single physical location, the United States, okay, or set of locations where the entire global computing economy is running through. Okay. So imagine if oil, like the bulk of the oil was only coming, like how we're dealing with Iran and the Strait of Hormuz, think about it like that. So we are creating the AI data center version of the Strait of Hormuz. That's what we're doing. So if you control those buildings and the property that those buildings are on and the time that is being rented by, from, where, who, you get to see what every AI model in the world is being trained on. You get to see what queries are being run by whom and on what data. You get to throttle access to foreign countries and foreign customers, friendly or unfriendly. You get to insert software updates, monitoring tools, or kill switches at the hardware level. You get to decide who is permitted to do AI work or who's not. And you get to set the price for the most important input in modern economy. This is not a future capability. This is the capability that's being built right now as we speak. The infrastructure for it is being poured into concrete in Texas, Indiana, Louisiana, Utah, operating in Tennessee, and more, Ohio, Virginia, Georgia. Okay. The legal authority for it is being written into things like Utah's MIDA, Military Installation Development Authority statute. All right. The Louisiana Lighting Speed Initiative is another one. And the federal CFIUS, CFIUS rules that quietly added 59, I think, new military installations in November 2024 that triggered jurisdiction for over any foreign money real estate transactions nearby. The China narrative is just a cover story. Every time anyone questions this build out, the answer is the same. Okay. We have to do this because of China, 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 China.